Hi, this is Suzanne in Ohio. Um, Hello to you from a beautiful Ohio fall. Other than a week of rain, which I think everybody had from hurricane remnants, we've had a gorgeous fall here. Most of the leaves are down, but not all of them. And I've been busy. I had a life-changing event, and I needed something to keep me busy. And my sisters and I and some friends are into this project. Now, this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, so I thought now was the time to delve into it and keep myself occupied. So, I did a lot of research on fabric baskets and watched a lot of tutorials and stuff, and then came up with my own method. And of course, two or three practice baskets to decide what technique I wanted. Now, if anybody's interested in knowing how I made these, I can make a tutorial. Um, just let me know in the comments. But for now, what I want to show you is just all the variations and the versions that I came up with. And these are in no specific order, but I just wanted to show them. And because mine end up just a little bit more complicated than the most fabric basket I found out there, I'm calling them keepsake baskets. Now, it's very difficult for me to film something as big as these because I don't have a proper setup. But um, let me see if I can get you out just a little bit more. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to go through these. I think I have 6, 7, or 8 of them right now. And then these will be up on my Etsy site if anybody's interested in looking at closer photographs or even purchasing one. So later on in the video, I will show you my basic concept and approach. So if you're interested in knowing the pattern and something, just quickly, I'll show that. But if anybody wants a step-by-step tutorial, I can do that later too. All right, so here's my first basket. It's a pretty simple plain fabric, but the embellishment is what is the star of the show here. So what I did was decorate it with some lace that I had dyed, and this is one of my fabric rose clusters, and I put it on the front of the basket with just scraps. And she has her jewelry. A lot of them have jewelry on. So just to show you the basic construction, this is double pockets on both sides and short handles because it is a basket, not a tote. So the handles are embellished with some of the same dyed torn lace that I did the front with. Okay, now these are that I'm going to show you are pretty large baskets, but I've been making them in all sizes, and so have my friends. So what ended up happening was I did 2 or 3, and as I sent pictures back and forth to my sisters, they got interested also, and between us and our friends, I think we have about 10 ladies coming into the house to sew. And I know it's COVID, but I trust all these people. I mean, how can you be sure where anybody's been? You cannot, but I do work at a beauty shop and it's no more risky than that. But we keep everything nice and sanitary and we're just having a lot of fun. So that's our first basket. And now I said this is in no given order and it is a little difficult to show you. But this is I call it the garden basket. So I put a swinging pocket here, which I will put some old seed packets and little paraphernalia in there, and probably some of my digi images shrunk down like little garden books and stuff from my journal making. But this is a pretty puffy basket. I wanted it to stand up on its own, so it's got reinforcement in it. It has something unique. It's got, aside from the embellishments, which I'll just show you those now. I've got garden gloves that are dirty and some tools. And I created a fabric tag. And then this has a vinyl window so that you could put someone's name there. And I like this idea of the tags so well that I'll probably end up making tags for all the other ones. Pardon me. And so this garden basket is made out of a quilt block. This quilt block was what was called a disappearing 9-patch. I believe it started out as a 9-patch, but I had a lot of orphan blocks, and I went ahead and made them into some baskets. And she's got a little garden hat here and some pots, just dirtied up and hanging there on the strap. Now this particular basket, I didn't put a binding around the top, but I rolled it down, and then I stationary put the fold in there with some buttons. Let's see. No, that's not a pocket. A lot of them have a pocket on the front. Now, as far as the collage goes on the front, this is something I would cover in another tutorial. But I have my original watercolor images of trowel and fork and pots and a watering can. So I printed those off on fabric, and then I appliqued them, sewing machine, free motion, apply, put them on the front. And then after that was all done, I did the ivy leaves with some of these curlicues and things like that. So she's just charming. I call her a she. And so there you have, that's the garden basket. Now let me grab another one. And this one, I haven't given it a name yet, but it's also started out as a quilt block. Let me show you the back of it. Now this was an hourglass framed off for those of you that quilt. So it was a very large quilt block that was intended for something else and never got completed. So I didn't want to waste my quilt block by coming underneath. So what I did was I worked out the logistics of putting a solid bottom on it. And so because it's all roses, I used this fabric print on the inside, and I think it was called Monet because I think he's the one that painted so many pictures of his garden and his pond. Now the front embellishment on this one is a conglomeration of old doily and dyed lace, some gold tulle, and this rose cluster that I had made previous. And you can see the handles are put on with little yo-yos. Now I say we, but mostly me, I guess. I did not match all the buttons on every single basket because I still am in the mentality that they're handmade. They're a collection of paraphernalia, much like a junk journal, and nothing has to be perfect. Now, I went ahead and left the dimensions on this one, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But this basket, to give you some idea of how big it really is, it's 9 across the front, 7 deep along the sides, and this particular one is 8 inches high. Now you can see I have strips here. This is strips that I cut myself that was left over from a quilting project. And I thought, boy, they go together. There's the bottom. They go together really nice. So you could sew your own strips together, and there you have it. You don't have to have leftovers. This one has a plain inside, no pocket or anything. And the front is raw edge applique put on by Free Motion Sewing, and I had dyed this cotton tablecloth lace with ink, and you can see the different tones. There's pink and yellow, and it goes into greens, and I only had a certain amount of it, so this is how I used it. Turned out very nice. And then the one little corner I had left, I mounted it up here and sewed it right in the top seam where the binding is. And she has some embellishment, which is a tassel cluster of matching fabrics, some scraps of that tablecloth cotton lace that I had left, and a rolled fabric flower. Now, as of right now, that's just tied on the handle. It can be removed. She also has some jewelry just tied around the button. And if you've never done some raw edge applique, it's just so much fun. There's a Teflon mat that you can get, and that's a whole tutorial in itself, or you can look it up on YouTube. I'm sure there's different, I didn't, but I'm sure there is plenty of tutorials on how to do that. But all these pieces of fabric are backed with Heat and Bond Light, and then they're put together as one piece before you even applique it onto your piece. All right, I don't know if that makes sense or not, but we could cover that in another tutorial if you're interested. Okay, next basket. Let's see what we've got here. All right, this one is pretty elaborate. It is the same size, but maybe a ½ inch taller. And I'm going to push it down just a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. The front embellishment is an image that I bought from an Etsy seller, and I printed it on transfer paper, Leslie Riley's transfer paper. I've used several different brands, and I do love that one. It does have a slick, shiny surface to it, but it has so many applications. Now, the reason I came up with this design is a long time ago, I had painted these bird feathers. And let me show you those while I'm thinking about it. I have many bird feathers that I painted, and I scanned them off and made files and printed them on paper and used a lot of them in my junk journals. And so I thought, well, I might as well use these original ones. And let me just show you a few. And these are very simply painted, very stylized. And I painted them on fabric, and I decided to paint them on those fabrics that are called white on white. In other words, you can see this one, it is white on white. So the way this fabric is printed, that little white flower there is, let me see if I can get that just a little closer. That is done with an overlay of paint. And so when you paint over top of it, that resists your acrylic that you're using, and it shows through as texture. Just that technique just worked out beautifully for me. So I'll show you some of these feathers real quick. And so I had those teal colored feathers, and I was looking for a bird that was teal, and I found an Etsy seller, and she must have thousands of pictures from original lithograph nature books, bird identifying books, and I just feel like I found a gold mine. So that's enough of that, but that's how I came by this design. I had teal colored feathers that I wanted to utilize, and so I found a teal colored bird. And this whole puffy here is a hidden pocket. It almost disappears into the front of the basket. And then some of my dyed lace, polymer dyed lace that I've spoke about many times, and then just bordered off with scraps. And she has her jewelry here, just some really pretty things, and and also a tassel cluster, and with fibers and fabric that all go with the theme. So let me turn it around for a minute and show you. There's the side. I know I'm a little washed out with the lighting. And here's the handles. I did a flat raw edge handle. By the way, the base here is canvas. And I just did a flat, puffy handle, tied it in a knot, and it has some lace applied to it. Now, the back also has an embellishment, some of the same scraps and one feather as if it's laying on the ground. Now, if you can see this little image on the canvas, what I did was lay down a piece of lace on my canvas and spritz it with alcohol ink. And those alcohol inks I made myself out of magic markers. I just love how they work. I just never felt like I wanted to make an investment to get all those colors of a pre-made alcohol ink, but I'm telling you, this works. My first thought when I made them was, well, I wonder if they'll evaporate in the bottle because it is alcohol, but no, it has not. Okay, and the inside is a satin, and then I'll show you that it has a matching smaller image on the inside as a pocket, and even a little piece of jewelry there. So there's your inside. I've crumpled it up here so it looks kind of weird, but it really functions well. These baskets are pretty elaborate, and I'm calling them memory baskets because you could, or keepsake baskets rather, either one, whatever you want, but they are quite nice and a long time keeper. You could set them on a bed table or anywhere on your desk and keep things in them, or you could just put special things in them for keeping. Okay, there's that one. And then here's another one, completely different style. And I called this one Fancy Bird. And it was an experimental project that just turned out wonderful. Now look at the inside. That is plain white sheeting, and I laid, again, curtain lace in this case. I laid curtain lace down on it and spritzed it. And actually, this is the curtain lace that I used to make this stencil. It just turned out so pretty. And then the bird is painted directly onto the fabric with ink tints, and then free motion stitched around. And then her wing is three-dimensional, and her wing has lace on it. The bottom is embellished with rows and rows of lace and gathered trim. And then right here, because the colors match just perfect, I put a cutout of an embroidery that I had from an old kitchen scarf or tablecloth or something that had seen its better days. And the ruffles travel all the way around and back to here. And then here's the little ribbon tassel, fiber tassel that matches all the colors in the whole thing. So that one was fun. New experiment. And then when I applied this embroidery, I gathered up some fibers and put it all around the edge so it would kind of pop out. So there's that one. Now, when I first got started, of course, it was early in the fall, and I love fall, and I made this one. This is one of my first ones. I had this beautiful fall print, and if you've seen any of my other stuff or ever looked at my Etsy site through the years, I love crows, and I had crows painted and left over from other projects that I've used them in. So I free motion appliqued him right on the front of this bag. He was already painted, but he was not thread stitched. And so that he just turned out, I think, beautiful. And he's quite handsome sitting there. I kept the embellishments really simple on this because the fabric was so busy. So it's a simple bag, nothing on the inside, short handles, so it replicates a basket, not a tote. And there you have it. Now let me look around for a second and see if I've shown you all of it that I have right now. I believe I have, but I want to show you one that's in progress. So this is the one that I'm working on right now. And for anybody that's interested in making their own, I have a couple things to show you. Not complete, but I just want to give you some idea of how it goes. All right, this is my design. It has background color, background stitching, and then appliqued mushrooms. And these mushroom appliques I had made a long time ago and used them for many things, and I still have quite a few. So I wanted to put a parade of mushrooms on here, and I just picked out the ones that I liked for this project and free motion sewed them right onto the fabric. And if you can see these twirlies right here, this is bobbin work. Very interesting. Now the bottom has some tattered laces, some of my dyed laces right on here. And when the basket is sitting down, it kind of invokes the idea of moss or a garden or a woodland floor of leaves and dried debris. On this one, I put a leather bottom. This is thin leather, but it is real leather. It's not pleather, which is kind of bonded, but this is real leather. I have a collection of leather clothing that I get at my thrift store. So that forms the bottom for that one. Now, this is kind of how it looks on the inside, and you'll understand why when I show you my pattern. So my pattern is all one piece, although it is not always. Sometimes I have to splice it in the middle, especially if you're working with a fabric that has an up and a down orientation. You have got to make sure both outsides of your basket are right side up. But in this case, this one is all one piece. And there's really only 4 seams, 2 side seams and 2 bottom gusset seams. And if you can see these little strips, let me show you what I have learned is the seams do need to be held open. Otherwise, your basket won't go together right, and it looks too bulky and awkward. So I pressed my seams open, and at first I was hand stitching and basting them open. I thought there has to be an easier way to all that hand stitching. So I thought of interfacing, adhesive interfacing. So I tried several different weights and kinds and brands. And what I ended up finding out that this woven one, that I call it suiting interfacing because it has give to it in every direction. Now, it's a Pellon product, if I can remember right, but other companies make it as well. And I just cut it in strips and ironed it on like little Band-Aids going across whatever I wanted to keep wide open. Now, the next step will be, there's more to say about these gusset seams in the bottom. It's hard to put it on the ironing board and press those little strips. Let me see if I can turn this so you can see it. Like I have one right here that has come unglued, but I will iron it back down and it will hold that gusset seam facing inward. Now, it doesn't matter if it goes inward or outward, but when you make the inside basket, the inside lining, it has to go the opposite way, or else it's just too much bulk down in the corners. So those are all the details I'm getting into. If you need to know more, um, leave a comment and I will do a tutorial. So the next step for this basket is to pick a lining and make an inside box just like this and put it down inside. And then you can see that, let me get one back here. Now again, there's lots of different methods on the internet, but this is the one I found that I liked the best. I wanted my front and my inside to be back to back, and I wanted to interface both pieces, one with felt, one with Pellon, and I didn't want to have to turn it and push it. I wanted the lining to stay down in the basket. So this is my method. Different ways for different people, but I did a regular quilt binding around the top. Now that's a little hard to see since it's all black, but a quilt binding method, which is like for instance, this little piece of fabric right here started out as 5 inches. You fold it so it becomes a 2.5-inch strip. And I sew mine on the inside or the outside first and then fold it to the inside and hand stitch it down. Okay, so there's the fabric basket concept. And let me show you one more thing. These are very big, so I apologize and have to turn around and leave. All right, so this was the original pattern that I drew up for myself. Now, like I said, after I watched many YouTube videos, I had to come up with what worked for me. Let me move my lighting. You girls, I'm low tech, so forgive me. I don't have everything proper. But here was how the pattern turned out. Basically, it looks like a T. And with the way the pattern is put together, you would lay this bottom edge on a fold. So you would cut 2 of these, one with the outside fabric, one with the inside fabric. But you know what happens when you fold fabric, especially something thick, like the Pellon that I'm using or the felt or quilt batting. So you don't get a true accurate measurement when you unfold it because the fold adds to the length. It would add to the length. So what I did was I figured out my pattern, and then I figured out if it was, regardless whether it was folded or laid flat, what I needed was a piece of fabric, and you can see right here, I needed, for this basket, I needed a piece of fabric that was at least 17 by 24 inches. And this is what your pattern looks like when it's unfolded. Here you have the T, and then it's flipped, and you have a T here. And then, but if it were all one piece, and I just used poster board, I thought that would be so much easier. And then I wouldn't have to adjust all the time. So this particular basket ends up to be, and you can see right there, it finishes at 9 across, 7 deep, and 9.5 high. Now the top of the height of a basket is easily adjustable. You could even go ahead and cut it all out and then just take an inch or something off the top if you want it a little bit shorter. But after I got the logistics worked out, then I created myself a wide open unfolded pattern, and you can see here. So this is pattern A, and I just laid it down on a bigger piece and copied it, flipped it over, copied it, double checked all my measurements, and cut it out exactly. So I like working with this great big piece first. Now let's go back to one more detail, because I found some errors in some YouTube videos that I had watched, and I just want to cue you in on this one necessary thing. These are not hard. They are easy. You can do them. But the one particular thing you have to make sure you're doing is cutting out your corners. Now, I didn't want to go ahead and wait till I sewed it all together and then cut out a corner. I went ahead and made that part of my pattern. So whatever happens is, first you decide what you want your seam allowance to be. Now, this seam allowance on this pattern is 1/2 inch, and I found out that was good. The more puffy fabric and the more layers you're using, the wider your seam allowance should be, because then it's easier to handle, it doesn't slip, and then you've got enough to open up and flatten out the seam. So after you decide what your seam allowance is going to be, then you're going to discount it. Forget that's there for a minute. And all you have to do to make a box is make sure that the dimension of your cutout is exactly the same on both sides. So from right here where the seam allowance starts over to the corner is 3 inches. And then it's 3 inches from here to here. And then what that does is it forms the gusset, and it goes together beautifully. I found some beautiful YouTube videos, 2 of them in fact, and they totally discounted, and then their gussets didn't fit. And they kept right on with their video, but I thought, wow, maybe they didn't quite have it figured out before they started. But this is how it works perfectly every time. 3 inches, 3 inches, or 2.5 and 2.5. And then if you think about it, if this is 3 inches from here to here, and that's double, then the depth is 6 inches. But you have to add the fact that you're going to come in another 1/2 inch for your seam allowance, and that turns the side into 7. So after you put a seam allowance on here, then your side actually gets deeper. All right, that can be explained better in a tutorial with some more diagrams. But that's the whole gist of it. We've ended up with some beautiful baskets, and what I've showed you today is mine. And of course, this was at the right time of year for people to really delve into this project, because it's we're thinking of Christmas, and people are doing as many as 10 or 12 baskets, all for gifts and giveaways, and put cookies in and things like that. So our baskets range from everything from 4 by 4 inches, pardon me, all the way up to this big one. Different shapes and sizes. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to know more, please leave me a comment. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching.